Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you are new. I am the stepson of Krypton.
And I am
That
Mantis.
way. This time it's actually going that way. And today we are discussing the MCU versus the DCU. Who's going to race towards failure? Mantis, are you ready to get into this discussion?
I'm ready. Let's go. Green flag, green flag.
Okay, guys. So when we talk about Marvel, the MCU and the DCU racing towards failure, what we are talking about is kind of a reference to an article we had read, but it did kind of spark a kind of a debate between Mantis and I. So we thought we'd bring it to the channel as well to kind of just go over our thoughts, but also we want to get your guys' thoughts on what you guys think, because apparently a lot of people had agreed with this way of thinking. Um, and we want to get everybody else's opinion on it too. But the current states of the MCU and the DCU are both kind of up in the air, right? We know Marvel has not had a lot of successes lately in the box office. Captain America 4, at the time of recording, still has not made back its entirety of money if you include the marketing budget now, because it's at like I think 340 million globally, and supposedly with marketing and everything it was 380 million. Now other sites have said it was 300 and something million, and we did a video on it. Just when you add the reshoots
Mhm.
in, that's not been confirmed ish by Marvel.
They
So
won't.
yeah, so but with marketing they put it in around 380 million for this movie, and it's not quite made that back yet, and it's already died off in the box office, as a lot of lesser
Wow.
superhero movies do, like your in games or maybe your Deadpool and Wolverine. So um not a failure, I'd say, but not a raging success like the other Captain America movies had been, especially like Civil War and things of that
Mhm.
nature. And again, the DCU's kind of up in the air as well. The Superman trailer's not been well received. The super suit was not well received. So it's got a lot of people kind of wondering, where are they trying to go with these universes, and are they trying to go too fast? Mantis, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't see how. I get like the MCU. The problem we discussed this before. First, regarding the MCU, like I think we were kind of both in agreement. Or maybe it was just me, because like you said, we did a video on this previously, at least touching on it. I think they should have done a soft reboot. And maybe that's still kind of what they're gonna do here with the Doom. What is it called? Doomsday? It just feels weird saying that.
Right, because we're such, on the DC side. No, so it's
Yeah.
Avengers Doomsday is going to be the next Avengers movie, and then after that will be Avengers Secret Wars.
See, right. So I know we kind of discussed maybe they would use this as a focal point to do a reboot. Um, I think they should. I think things are stymied out. I think also what you end up doing is you. I feel like Marvel right now is at critical mass, meaning uh, it probably has some to do with a little bit with superhero fatigue, at least on the MCU side, but also you can't keep paying these actors exorbitant amounts of money and taking up massive chunks of the budget of the film. I mean, you may not know this off the top of your head. How much did Robert Downey Jr. How much is he getting to make this next Avengers movie?
So they had
We
said
know.
between, because there's rumor he's going to be in Avengers Doomsday, obviously, and then obviously they haven't speculated to how much of the Secret Wars he's going to be in. Now, Von Doom is very heavy in Secret Wars, but it was somewhere in the range of, it's like 75 to 100 million for these two movies.
I mean, that's just wild to me for one actor. Okay. That's not even production budget. That's not including, that's literally his salary. And I'm assuming probably because I think we talked about this previously, he's one that likes to take the back end of that where makes money off of the residuals, right? Doesn't take an upfront pay bump on that. He likes to take what a little bit more of a chunk of what the DVDs and Blu-rays and if there are any action figures, all of that nonsense put together, right? Um, And not even including all of that for one actor. I think that's kind of the way DC looked at it when they saw, even if I think it's probably wrong to an extent, because again, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, you can go down the line of all the actors that were in Avengers and continued to be in those films, even to the fourth phase here. It's like you have these actors spawning 20 years. Their salaries keep bumping and keep bumping and keep bumping, right? The DC side, it wasn't necessarily like that. I mean, Henry Cavill had been in a few Superman movies. I mean, Ben Affleck was in a few movies. It's not like they'd been in several. It's not like there was this huge 15, 20-year span of them gaining, salary bumps throughout. But it's weird that that was kind of the way that DC, Warner Brothers, Discovery kind of explained it away of doing the reboot, was that we want fresh new actors and we want a new direction and we don't want to confuse anyone, and we also, they didn't say this, we don't want to pay them that much. Yeah, I think the reboot on the DC side is not the same, because like this, like you said, this is a brand new universe. Like I don't see how you could say they're going too fast. They literally have one show out. Like it's a, I don't know. To me, it just doesn't seem like, I don't see how you can say they're going too fast.
Well, I think what they mean is that, okay, real quick to touch on the Marvel side of that, is that
Mhm.
you had 20 plus movie build up and over 10 years build up to Endgame, right? And now you're going to have only a 3 years, 4 years,
I said 20 years.
do what?
I think I said 20 years. I mean, like
Um,
20 movies.
uh, you're only going to have a couple of years between Avengers Doomsday, and then you only have another year and a half to 2 years between Secret Wars. Okay, so you have, with Secret Wars, is one of the biggest storylines in all of Marvel comics, and you're going to
Mhm,
cram all of that in because we don't have a lot of. There's not a lot of filler. There's not all these other movies and other characters getting their own origin stories, right? Because they haven't. What you tried isn't working. So it's like,
mhm.
okay, you went off Endgame. We've had a lot of misses, and now all of a sudden you're gonna go into Avengers Doomsday and bring in Victor Von Doom and Galactus, all these characters, and then rush right into Secret Wars, right? This iconic buildup that's going to rebirth the MCU into supposedly one universe. And then on the DC side, you know, a lot of people struggled with when the DCEU launched is we didn't get origin stories on a lot of the characters, right? We got them, boom, they just kind of showed up, and then you had to try to do a lot of filler in, the Batman v Superman did a little bit because you saw the clips of that he's watching of these heroes, but a lot of it had to try to quickly get done in Justice League. Right. Well, now
Mhm.
you've got a new universe birth and James Gunn. I was kind of stuck on Zack Snyder. You got James
Zack Snyder.
Gunn who doesn't want to do origins, and we're dropped into this universe already in place, and it's like, oh, now we've got the Superman movie, and we've got all these characters coming in, and all these TV shows, and thus far, when I say, well, I say when I think what people are saying, like when it seems like it's going too fast, is Superman hasn't even been well received thus far, and you're kind of he's the focal point, and he's dropping you into this universe in progress. Well, if you screw that up, and like you have said, he's the center of the DCU. If that gets screwed up, well, now you got all these other projects in the fire, and maybe you should have spent more time and slowed down to get this one right, and really focus on making sure that the story was well written, that the character that everything was filmed right. I think that's what they mean. I could be wrong, and maybe it's just
You're
interpreting, but
probably
it's just
right.
like,
No, I mean, you're probably right. I just think that's a dumb thought. Again, to me, it's in the same vein of saying, "Oh, this movie's gonna suck,"
This movie's gonna suck.
because I've seen all of 5 minutes, and not even that of the TV teaser. Like,
I'd say it's a
I
premature
mean,
thought, right? It's premature
yeah,
because we don't
yeah, yeah.
know. We haven't even seen a full trailer of the movie yet, let alone the movie in itself. So, you know, if, and we had discussed this a little bit in the DCU news video that we actually is just releasing right now,
Mhm.
that it's, what do you do if the Superman movie doesn't do well, right? Do you try to go on kind of like, we had talked about in the Justice League Unlimited uh comic books, where they're kind of not focused on the heavy hitters. So again, it seems like you're rushing into this, and I don't know why it's like, oh, hey, yeah, we got to get this movie out, and we got to get the shows out, and we got to get this show out, and then we got to get this movie out, and it's kind of like boom, 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 like, you know, a movie every
Mm.
year. It's like, maybe slow it down, take your time, see how the first one does. Instead of, you're building this universe that the foundation is Superman, and thus far it doesn't seem like a lot of people are on board yet. Now that could change, but
Yeah, I
right
think you're right.
now,
I don't think they're. I mean, I know the movie's called Superman, but at least from what we've seen, I don't. I mean, there's a lot of characters in there, and we've there's been some rumors that come out of the test screenings that that's gonna, don't crucify me for this. I don't forget the guy who's playing Lex, but they said he did a
Nicholas Holt.
fantastic job. Yes, he did a fantastic job as Lex. They said that there's some interesting and surprising bad guys that pop up that you may not be thinking are going to pop up. Um, but I guess, kind of to your point, if it's not going to focus on that, or if I'm looking at this from a business perspective, right? If I take a step back and not as a fan of DC, and I'm more of a business person, I have to be looking 6 years down the road. They're not going to do what they did with the DCEU and just not think of what the end goal of this whole story arc is. What do they want to do in 10 years? And James Gunn has said this. They're approaching it like they did with like the MCU did. They have an end goal of what needs to culminate, what's going to happen. They just need to fill in the gaps, and it has to make sense. The problem, I guess, like you said, you get with that. There's nothing wrong with future casting and have an idea of where you want to go, and these are, if everything goes well, this is where we want to end up. But you do need to have contingency plans as well. It's dumb if you don't.
What's your contingency plan?
Contingency plan?
Your backup plan. You got to have some kind of backup plan, right?
No, we don't have a backup plan. This is
One of the things that I saw on a Screen Rant article, because I was going to bring this up because we were discussing Absolute. And again, if you haven't, I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you have not watched our videos on the Absolute stuff, or any of the other comic series that we've kind of done, you should check them out. But I'm going to invoke the Absolute universe here, because I saw a article on Screen Rant that said the Absolute series, the comic story adaptations, would be perfect to bring those into a animated action movie or series. They would be perfect for it. Again, I think you could get that visceral comic book pain type stuff, and we both agree. I'm sure you agree on this. Like, animation just lends itself way easier to depict exactly what's happening from the comic books, like, than trying to do it live action. It just is easier. It's cheaper. I think it looks cooler because you can do so many different things in animation than you can with live action. The thing here too, like you said, as a contrast of Superman just jumping into this universe where these characters already exist, and I hate origin stories, so I'm not necessarily against it. However, with the Absolute universe, it does give you an opportunity to do origin stories, but in a different twist, right? It's not the OG origin stories everyone knows. So it's not as, for me, I'd be fine with it, because it's not, oh gosh, Clark just crash lands and it's old Martha and John. No, that doesn't happen. It's, for me, that would be a completely new story, new take on it. I would be fine with it. And again, because it's animated, it's also not necessarily canon, or you could make it that way. Again, we don't particularly know. I know James Gunn, we've talked about this before. James Gunn has discussed that the animation movies in the DCU as well as live action are going to kind of intertwine, right?
Well, yeah, because Creature
Not saying that has to happen here. Right. That obviously wouldn't be the case with the Absolute universe, because it's like the storyline is completely thrown up on its head. So just something I thought was very interesting. I saw, and We can link the article I was talking about there if you guys want to check that out. But I'd be fine if you're talking about origin stories, and because people are kind of maybe upset that they're getting dropped in this universe and they don't feel like it's a situation that they don't know the characters as much. I think you get an extent with that with Absolute, but it's not. It doesn't feel familiar and boring.
And I agree. And I also will say that yes, if you haven't read the Absolute series, go check it out. Absolute Superman #5 is going to release, I believe, next week at time of recording, at least. Absolute
Mhm.
1 through 5 on Wonder Woman and Batman are already out. Uh, Great series all around, and then of course we're going to get some more with some Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and Flash coming out here in the next few months, all leading up to the summer of Superman. I think, though, again, just to kind of reiterate, I think though people are worried is that you kind of did this once already with the Zack Snyder, with the Snyderverse and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Is everything kind of like just got thrown together, and people didn't know who these characters were, and there wasn't that connection. And then you're kind of doing the same thing here with the no origin stories, which again I'm okay with because I know every one of the characters that are on screen that I've seen thus far, that I can make out who they are. Right, some of them are kind of like,
Mhm.
who's that supposed to be? But um, and with Marvel, again, Marvel, you planned out over a decade's worth of movies. You had all of these things when you had a very, very well laid plan leading up to Endgame. And then since then, it just seems like you kind of just are winging it, right? And where, yeah, James Gunn might have a plan to bring out the next 10 years of DC for a lot of people. I understand that it does look confusing, right? And we've said it in multiple other James Gunn videos, is we're kind of in this hurry up and wait, right? This is all we can do is just wait until, one, we get a full trailer, two, also the movie comes out and we see. Because again, this movie is a little different, that since you are birthing a new universe, it's being heavily scrutinized from the very first image of the super suit. We did a video on that as well. People hated it, absolutely freaking hated it, and we're very vocal about it. And we got the second images of like the Kent farm. People fucking hated it. And of course, we get the first trailer. People fucking hate it. So it's difficult to say. You can't say he's rushing towards, because we don't know what's going to happen, and what the build up and what the next movies are going to do and what the shows are going to do, right? So it's a little premature, I think, to say that DCU is rushing towards some kind of failure, whereas MCU, I think you are in failure, and it's what are you doing to pull yourself out of it, right? um Having such huge success and now you're way down here. uh it's what are you doing to pull yourself out? And I believe you're 100% correct, is after the culmination of Endgame, you should have done a soft reboot, right? Oh, sorry guys. It's fucking microphone. See, we were talking about this off camera. The damn microphone's just in the way. I can't even fucking move. But you should have done a soft reboot, and I think that's part of your problem, is that Endgame was an end storyline, right? Just like Secret Wars is going to be an end storyline, and you're not going to continue to build on that. You need to kind of reboot. So, maybe Secret Wars will finally take care of that, get it all in one universe. Because I think, we talk about both whether they're racing towards failure. I think what they are going to be racing towards is getting rid of these multiple timelines. And that's where I think the Elseworlds timeline for the DCU is not going to work out. We've seen the failure of the Joker 2. There's still a question, and the Batman movie got pushed back a year. I think we're going to probably start seeing that fade away, because people are kind of over this multiple timeline, and we'll just go get a variant of the character and bring him back, and yeah, he's going to do this till he's 90.
Damn straight it is. Fox killed him. Disney brought him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
Like Deadpool said, we'll just throw more money at Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. because they were what made the universe successful, and we'll just find some way to bring them back into the movies. People are kind of getting
That's
tired
literally
of
what
that.
they did.
Well, it
That's
is.
what they did. Yeah. I guess my final thoughts on this again. One thing to keep in mind, that I think a lot of people maybe don't realize, or maybe they don't think about, when you have a franchise like Marvel, that has spanned, like you said, a decade. a lot can happen in a decade. And here's the thing with movies in general, film, art, if you want to call it that. It's all based off of the culture that's happening at the current time. And I feel like right now, at least in America, there is another culture shift happening. And it started, I think, a couple years ago as well, but you could see where certain things started being pushed in films. We're not going to get into what that is. I'm just saying certain viewpoints got pushed in films and in storylines. Okay.
Put a
And
chicken in, make her gay.
Fuck baby J, put a chicken in, make her gay.
yeah.
Sorry,
You
I had
know,
to.
I mean,
I'm gonna cut that in.
it is what it is. So when you look at it as a whole, all of a sudden you see this, like, I won't say inconsistent message, but you know, that does take a toll on people as well. I mean, especially with the last couple years, it's just been kind of bad. So, and that makes sense because there's, like I said, this shift happened, and the problem is when that happened, these movies were already in production, already in film, already the stories were already written. Partially, we'll never know exactly what the original storyline was for Brave and the Bold, or not Brave and the Bold, Brave New World, before they decided to spend another assload of money to fix it. Part of me thinks it had to do with some maybe not so popular themes in that film. Um, but who knows? Maybe that'll come out. But just something to keep in mind there. You know, cultural shifts happen, and the movies are reflective of that. And with DC kind of revamping that, or say revamping, rebooting their universe, they kind of just skip all that garbage that happened in the past. And even I will say this, realistically, of all the overarching cultural themes and social problems and stuff like that that were in the US during the time of the filming and making, writing, directing of all of the DCEU films, I never really got the sense that they pushed too much of that in their films. I feel like it was more story driven, character driven than anything else. It wasn't, for better or worse, I just didn't get that feeling. So I don't necessarily think the failure, if you want to call it that, of the Snyderverse, I don't think that had anything to do with it. I just think this gives you an opportunity, if there was anything like that, to reset all that. And they're going to it. If nothing for the cultural shift, more of the way that audiences look at DC as a whole, because again, the Snyderverse, and I liked it, was kind of dark. I mean, even going back to Christopher Nolan's, Batman, it was very dark. It wasn't a hopeful overarching theme, right? That the Marvel universe gave you. And again, they're trying to switch that with that reboot here in DCU and move more towards that. You can see it in the writing, the film, even the small snippet that we got. You can tell the way that the action sequences. You can tell the way um, the film grading is, the lighting, like all of it. It just seems a little bit brighter, a little bit more um, happy, I guess, for a lack of a better
Hopeful.
term. Hopeful, yeah. So that's all I would say is, keep an eye on that type of stuff as well when
Now,
you're kind of watching some of this.
I'm not going to give my final thoughts on that because it's going to basically echo what Mantis just said, because I agree with him 100% on it. What I will say though is, how interesting would it be if we're talking about like the blend of the comic books, right? That instead of running Elseworlds, we run the Absolute Universe at the same time, birthed off of it, right? Like, it happens, Darkseid births the Absolute Universe. So we see Henry Cavill come back as the Superman, but he is the darker Superman, like from
That'd
Absolute
be fucking
Superman.
cool.
How
That'd be
cool would
fucking
that
cool.
be? You have two completely different Supermen, two completely different Wonder Womans. You have all that because we're seeing the dark side. Like, we're seeing them raised as in the Absolute Universe, where they're raised
Yeah.
in the complete opposite conditions that they were. And so we're seeing I think that would actually be cool, right? Because I know we said that two Batmans and two this, that, and the others would be confusing. But that's because you're running them in the separate universes, but of the same character. But if we're seeing the darker versions, and with Batman, it's kind of hard to think and go darker, but he does.
It is. It is.
It is
It
much
is.
darker. But like with Superman, the origin where he's been on planet for years, but on Krypton, but he's in grade school before he comes to Earth, and how dark it is and stuff. I think that would be a cool, a complete tonal shift, right? So you can have your
Mhm.
light, the brevity, the hopefulness, and then you have that darker, but they still got to find their way. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I don't. Again, I think it would be a lot easier to do in animation. Not saying they couldn't do it in live action. I just think it would
This is where we
be
get Henry
more
Cavill
difficult,
back.
cost more money.
He could be Dark Superman.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I just think it would be very expensive. But if it makes money, it doesn't really matter. If you make your money back, who cares?
Right?
Yeah,
They got that money to throw around. They got that
Pre-
fuck you money.
pretty
But guys,
business.
let us know down in the comments, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about thus far where the universes are going? Do you think they're heading in a good direction? Do you think they are racing towards failure? As a couple of, we say like, oh, a lot of people. It's been some. I have no exact numbers based off of this article and things like that. I can't give you a percentage of the population. You know how news articles like to always highlight the bad and not the overwhelming good. So it might not be, but I understand to a degree. I think we all do need to be a little patient. But let us know. Do you think maybe they're racing to a bad end? Um, and then would you like to see the absolute universe come over into the movies and run two concurrent where it's a light and a dark, just not Star Wars style, because they haven't been doing great with
No,
that. Um,
no.
so, and if you have made it with this far, consider giving this video a like. He is showing you where. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our videos on. We're obviously keeping up with everything going on with the Superman movie and the DCU, some of the MCU stuff as well. But we are breaking a lot heavier into the comic books because All In Comics is putting out a lot, and I mean a lot of new comics. Mantis and I, in the last month and a half, 2 months, we're like 60 plus comics in of all the different series starting up and going
I don't
through.
want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's costing us quite a bit of money, but it's fun. Go check out the videos. We have put out videos of kind of overviews of the Absolute Universe as well as the Justice League Unlimited that is going on, because we are a month out from the start of the summer of Superman in the comic books and then leading up to the movie. So
Yeah, we're only what is this? We're 3 months, 4 months away from Superman. The
July
movie
12th.
releasing in theaters. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So have your bell little notifications and all that click so you get updated when we release these new videos, because we got a lot more content on this coming out. And Mantis, unless you have anything else.
No.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it for us on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, we will see you then.
Later.